Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The thug humiliated the beginner, but didn't know that in front of him was a kickboxing champion. In Chicago, in a neighborhood where the walls were spray-painted in bright colors, but the air often seemed saturated with tension, each morning brought its share of uncertainty. The narrow streets, lined with red brick buildings and small family businesses, vibrated to the rhythm of hurried footsteps and conversations between neighbors. Yet beneath this apparent vitality, the reality was harsh. Unemployment, latent violence, and a constant feeling of being under surveillance. In this complex setting, a young man named Ethan Carter was trying to find his way. At 22, he had just landed his first real job, delivering for a small local business. A small victory in his life that, however, weighed heavily on his heart. Ethan was a reserved boy, with a gentle but sometimes shifty, almost shy gaze. Yet, behind this facade, there was an unwavering will, a determination born of years spent battling doubt and judgment. The only son of a nurse mother who had sacrificed everything to give him a better future, Ethan felt he had a mission, to prove he could rise above difficulties, escape this often stigmatized neighborhood, and show his family that he had a place in this world. That morning, he had carefully put on his uniform, adjusted his cap, and picked up his delivery bag. But the fatigue of a short night's sleep still left dark circles under his eyes. He couldn't help but think back to the long discussions with his mother, the encouragement mixed with worry. As he crossed the street, his gaze still a little lost, a group of young men stood on the opposite sidewalk. Their presence dominated the space. Noisy, laughing, they gave off an almost threatening energy. At their head was Jamal Big J. Thompson, an imposing figure, tall, with a hard face and a mocking smile. Jamal was a sort of king in this neighborhood, known for his arrogance, frequent fights, and ability to impose his law through fear. No one approached him without feeling a shiver of apprehension. Even the most daring preferred to avoid his gaze. But this morning, Jamal had decided to have some fun at the new kid's expense. He said, his deep voice carrying a challenge. "Hey kid." The snicker that followed seemed to echo like a clap of thunder through the quiet street. "Do you really think you'll stay here long?" Jamal continued, his piercing eyes staring at Ethan. "That will show you how it works in this neighborhood." Ethan felt his heart race. His instincts were screaming at him to run, but he tried to stay calm. He quickened his pace, trying to ignore the gang. But Jamal and his accomplices began to follow him. They quickly moved around him, surrounding Ethan with an ease that betrayed their habit of this kind of intimidation. "Look at this," Jamal said, roughly grabbing Ethan by the collar, pulling him towards him. "The new kid who thinks he's invincible." Without thinking, Ethan lowered his head, his eyes instinctively avoiding Jamal's hard, provocative gaze. He felt Jamal's hand tighten around him, like a trap he couldn't escape. The crowd was beginning to murmur, the atmosphere becoming electric. Then, abruptly, the slap sounded, a sharp crack that echoed throughout the street. The sound echoed in the sudden silence that followed. Ethan's face tightened with the searing pain, a bright red flush marking his cheek like a public stigma. But beyond the physical pain, it was shame that choked him most. A mixture of humiliation and helplessness overwhelmed him. The crowd, initially taken aback, watched in silence, as if frozen in this scene where violence seemed to dominate the moment. Eyes turned away timidly, some whispered, others shifted nervously. Jamal, for his part, was jubilant. A cruel smile stretched his lips. He savored this moment of power, this easy triumph over an opponent he deemed weak. He was ready to continue, to crush all resistance, when suddenly a calm, collected voice cut through the surrounding tumult. "Let him go, Jamal. You don't know who you're talking to." All eyes turned toward that voice, full of authority. A man was advancing slowly, without haste, each step affirming his presence. It was Mike Reynolds at 28. Mike exuded a powerful aura. His muscular build and upright posture naturally commanded respect, or fear. His face was marked by rigor. His piercing eyes seemed to analyze every detail, calculating the situation with total mastery. Mike was no stranger to the neighborhood. A former soldier, he had served for several years on difficult missions before turning to his passion, kickboxing. A recognized champion in the region, He also had a reputation as a fair man, often intervening to calm tensions and protect the weak. Her gaze fell on Jamal, a glint of calm defiance in her eyes. "Are you looking for trouble?" Mike asked, his voice firm but without unnecessary aggression, as if his mere presence was enough to lay down the rules. Jamal burst out laughing, a laugh heavy with contempt and smugness. "You?" he sneered, "a kickboxing champion? What difference does that make?" He stepped forward a little, his smile turning carnivorous. "That you're going to end up like that newbie." Without warning, Mike adopted a perfectly controlled fighting stance. His feet spread slightly apart, firmly planted on the ground, his body supple, yet ready to explode. His hands rose slowly, palms open, demonstrating complete control over his strength. Each gesture was fluid, precise, almost elegant, like a masterful dance where each movement had a clear purpose. Jamal, confident, roared a challenge and charged straight at Mike, ready to crush what he considered a weakness. But he had barely taken 2 steps when Mike sprang forward with lightning speed. He easily dodged the first attack, a clumsy hook, and countered with a powerful side kick that struck Jamal in the hip, instantly knocking him off his feet. Surprised, Jamal staggered, but tried to recover. Mike then unleashed a series of swift movements, a straight punch followed by a precise sweep that knocked Jamal to the ground. The impact echoed on the asphalt, and Jamal stood there for a moment, stunned and out of breath. Surprise was evident on his face. He had never imagined a fight could be so fast and controlled. The surrounding crowd, which had been holding its breath in palpable tension, erupted into murmurs of admiration and amazement. Some applauded softly, others exchanged incredulous glances. Ethan, still scarred by the slap, slowly straightened. His muscles ached, his face tinged with red, but most of all, his eyes shone with a new light, one of gratitude and renewed hope. He approached Mike, his voice low, almost whispered. "Thanks." Mike placed a firm but gentle hand on her shoulder, conveying both strength and comfort. "Never let anyone put you down," he said calmly. "Your real strength, Ethan, doesn't come from the fear they try to instill, but from the will you have within you." That day, something profoundly changed in Ethan. This fight, much more than a physical victory, was a life lesson. With Mike as his mentor, he began training in kickboxing, discovering in this sport a discipline, a refuge, and above all a way to rebuild himself. Every blow landed on the bag became an outlet, every movement learned a victory over his doubts. He quickly understood that physical strength was not enough. Self-confidence, discipline, and respect were far stronger pillars with which to face the world. It was the beginning of an intense journey, that of a young man ready to change his destiny, with courage and tenacity. A few months later, the neighborhood's atmosphere had changed, at least around those like Ethan who had chosen to fight differently. Chicago's biting cold was giving way to a still timid spring. The trees were beginning to turn green again, and in the alleys, a breath of fresh air could be felt. Ethan, transformed by his rigorous training, was no longer the shy and hesitant young man he once was. His body had grown stronger, his muscles defined by hours spent tirelessly practicing kickboxing moves. But what was even more noticeable was the newfound confidence emanating from him, a mixture of inner calm and determination. The local community, still marked by tensions but also proud of its talents, had organized a symbolic event, a kickboxing match between Ethan and Jamal, in a gym transformed into an arena for the occasion. It was more than just a sporting duel. It was a confrontation between two visions of power and strength. On fight night, the stands were packed. Families, neighbors, former rivals, everyone wanted to see this unique moment where past and present collided. Jamal, ever so confident, wore a smirk, ready to defend his reputation as the neighborhood's king. But this time, he sensed something had changed in Ethan. When the gongs sounded, the fight began with palpable intensity. Jamal charged forward, aggressive, seeking to assert his dominance as before. But Ethan, with astonishing skill, dodged, controlled his breath, and countered with precise, powerful, yet measured blows. Each exchange ratcheted up the tension in the room. Ethan didn't just parry attacks. He set the pace, dictated the tempo. His determination transcended the pain, his movements a reflection of hard work, a discipline forged through daily effort. Little by little, Jamal was losing his footing. His initial confidence was crumbling in the face of Ethan's endurance and tenacity. He understood that fear and gratuitous violence were no longer enough. What triumphed over him was the strength of the heart, the intelligence of the body, and the power of persevering work. When the fight ended, the crowd erupted in applause. Ethan raised his hands, not in arrogant victory, but in humility and gratitude. Jamal, on his knees, his gaze lowered, had changed. That day, he silently recognized that true power came not from brutality, but from the willingness to grow, to surpass himself, and to respect others. This confrontation marked a turning point in the neighborhood. It became a local legend, a symbol of hope and transformation. Ethan, once a simple, shy delivery man, had become a living example of resilience and courage.